Hey guys, Andy Wood here with JamPlay. We're going to start the building blocks of improvising over country. We're going to be looking at the basic blues progression and how to approach soloing on it over maybe a train beat or a shuffle or something like that. That would be a typical country rhythm section thing. The basic formula for me is, instead of doing what maybe like the habitual blues approach might be, harmonically under a blues progression, you could kind of stay in this A box the whole time over every chord. So you'd have like a, and then the D chord would come up. We're still in that same box. Back to A. And then the E chord happens. You see how I've never moved, right? I've always been in this safe zone as far as my note choice. It sounds really good and traditional and great and bluesy, but it doesn't sound country, right? So even if you had this going on underneath you, you can't just stay here. It doesn't sound country, even if you're on the back pickup. It still doesn't have that authenticity, the detail in the language. Where I've found to acknowledge that is really address each chord change as its own dominant chord. When I hear the A, that just sounds like this is what's going on. That's my root. So, and then when the D comes along, I don't just stay there. I treat that D, now I'm going to outline all these thirds. There's that third back to the A, and we heard the resolution happen, right? And now when the E comes along, back to D. So what I'm doing is, I'm treating every one of those chords as if they existed among their own merits. When I solo over D, I'm just playing all that I can over that D7, really acknowledging the thirds. And now when the E happens, same thing. Back to the D. And then we got the A again. Really acknowledging any thirds that I can grab. Whether that be with a bend, or that be with maybe an alternate pick line, and then down to the D. And that doesn't have to be the same kind of moving back a whole step. It could be, that'd be working in the opposite direction. I went to that, So the point of this is to take the information that we know about our arpeggio shapes that we learned in a previous lesson. And then as we're playing through the changes, acknowledging that when the chord happens underneath you. So if you have several bars of A, here's where the D would happen. Back to the A. Now we're going to go to the E, to the D, back to the A, right? So you just take your time getting used to playing through these different changes, and you don't have to play a constant barrage of notes. Like if I were just going to play a much simpler version of a solo that cycled through this and used this idea, let's say we got, again, 1, 2, 3. That's a much more digestible type of solo. I'm just improvising as I go here, but the idea is that you're aiming at target notes. When I was aiming at the E, down to the D, really trying to acknowledge this. And then another thing I like to do around that D is play the 7th and the 3rd, and then you're back to the 1. So just start looking at the fretboard, and instead of seeing your solo happen in one safe spot of notes, you're really acknowledging that now that the D happens or the E, the 4 or 5 changes, that you're acknowledging the thirds in those chords to really address the listener, that you know where the changes are, and it gives that authenticity to the sound. And we're going to expand on that as we go further down the improvisation well. All right, so now you've got the philosophy of the soloing, right? Look at every chord as its own dominant thing. I played a ton of different improvisations, just kind of throwing some licks around. What I want to do now is kind of give you some ammunition for building your own licks. We're going to start with one of my favorite things to do, like this revolving door kind of lick I picked up off of like Brent Mason or Albert Lee 20 years ago. It's the really iconic country altered pedal tone thing that happens like this. So you can hear that dominant sound. It's cool that it get this tritone. Those two notes stick next to each other. So we're starting out in A. And also, for the record, we'll be soloing in A. That way you're not getting bombarded with too many chord changes. This is just simple blues A harmony. You'll be able to take all these licks, put them in whatever key you like. So here we go. Here's the lick. So we're alternate picking on the D string with a slide in to start the lick. And we have A, alternating from the hybrid playing to the pick. And then we're going to drop down, and that resets the lick, and we're going to have now an A7 kind of sound. It's a really great thing that can be used at so many different tempos, like at a slow tempo. And an up tempo. Right? So this thing has a lot of ways to get around. As you're going to move it around the fretboard, let's say you want to go to D or E or whatever. The workaround by not having that open string is to alternate where the F sharp is, right? And we're going to put the flat 7 there. It's the same lick, now we don't have any open string. So let's play that in A, D, and E. And then you can end it with anything you like. So it's a great alternating lick, and it gives you a chance to look at how you can use that moving throughout some different shapes throughout the neck. Of course, learn this in every key: E flat, F, F sharp. Learn it all over the place. They could be used on different string sets. When you move it up to the B and E string sets, you have, because of the tuning of the guitar, you now have to play. There's the lick, one more time. All right, so let's dig into some more dominant licks, ways to get around in dominant keys. One of the things that we talked about was that pedal tone lick. Here's another good rolling type of lick that I like to do in certain keys where I can use the open G, or say I'm in, on a lower string set. Maybe I'd use whatever open string is that I'm playing on. Obviously, if you're playing in keys that don't have open strings, this lick is going to have to be mutated a bit. But here's the lick in the key of A, because that's where we've been playing most of the stuff in the lessons. So here we go. Now, on top of this idea, keep in mind that as you move this, it's your job to put this in different parts of the guitar, different shapes, different chord voicings. That's all up to you. What I'm just giving you is the basic fundamental ammunition. So here we go. We're going to start with the picking pattern that is on the on the D string. So we have a double hybrid, and then another root, and then again. Here it is really slow. You see I'm doing that palm mute thing to give it that nice sound. Now, if we drop that root down, we can start outlining that 4 chord. You start just moving these voices around, you start seeing all these connective tissue. So there you get a D7, really great for your 4 chord. Then of course up from that, there's your E7, and then back to A. You can put this on different string sets. Now in this version, we're outlining this A, right? And I'm putting the dominant, the 7th down here. But I'm having to pull off with my pinky. You see how the pattern in the right hand's the same. We've just dropped everything down a string set. And this can be applied to all kinds of different voicings. Let's find another one. How about... It's kind of a darker sounding voice. It's got a A7 kind of sound. But now we're going to add in the 9. Very pedal steel-esque. You can drop this across the fretboard. Finish it out however you like. Okay, so here's a really cool voicing around that 6. And that leads us right down to that 4 chord. That's a great voicing right there around the D, because you get the B as the open string. It's one of those things I was talking about. Find voicings that allow you So when you're doing it in E, there's your 7 as the open string. And it's like, but it's, right? So that's a cool sound. Just experiment with it, and I think you're going to find a lot of usefulness in this kind of pull-off hammer-on type lick, and it'll help you use it when you're coming into a chord and maybe you don't have an idea on deck. You can default down to like this alternating vamp kind of thing that happens. So one more time. All right, so I'm going to give you another lick. This one's kind of a just an idea built around using the 3rd and lining into the 3rd, using some alternate picking. It's like single note kind of line. It can be western swing, it can be chicken picking, just on the inflection that you use. So here's the idea right here. That's the main idea, right? And we're going to take that and move that using the scale and some of the harmony we've talked about. Now if we move that up to D, back down to A. And what's cool is if you're seeing this, if you're seeing that as the main part, you can actually not be so married to the lick happening in a certain order. right? That'd be another version. I'll just know that I'm starting out and I'm going to acknowledge that third. I'm starting on the 9 and then 4, minor third, right? And that's going to get me as a launching pad into whatever I might play next. So I would never play a solo that had that lick happening that many times in it. But for the sake of the example, you could just see how useful that a line like this is. And that's something that a lot of Western swing guys and jazz guys even would do, is find out how many ways that something could be used. Like, you know, they would take an idea and a motif and they would just move it throughout chord changes. So this is a great way to kind of have a hip. You could even swing it. Right, you can see how many ways that works in kind of a Western swing aspect. That's a nice little connective tissue, super glue kind of series of notes that can help you transition and help you build your own licks, and have fun with that. And I can't wait to hear what you come up with.